Hello and welcome. Today we're digging into a really fascinating question. Why is an ancient practice like astrology more popular than ever in our super modern world? I mean, it's everywhere, from apps on your phone to social media feeds. But why now? What's the deal? Okay, so let's just dive right in. We live in this age of data, of science, of hard evidence, and yet millions and millions of us are turning to the cosmos for answers. It sounds like a total paradox, right? But if you look closer at the moments we tend to reach for astrology, a pretty clear pattern starts to show up. Take the recent pandemic, for example. It was a time of incredible uncertainty, and guess what? Studies found that the use of astrology apps shot up by a massive 40%. It seems like when the world around us feels chaotic and totally unpredictable, we start looking for a bigger story, some kind of framework to help it all make sense.
But here's the thing. To really understand why it's booming today, we have to rewind the clock. Way back, because this search for cosmic order isn't some new age trend. It's actually one of humanity's oldest tools for finding meaning, with roots that go back thousands and thousands of years.
And in the very beginning, astrology wasn't about personality quizzes or whether you're compatible with a Leo. For ancient civilizations, it was a much more serious, even essential tool for just navigating the world.
For millennia, this was serious business. In Mesopotamia, the planets were seen as messages from the gods. In Egypt, the stars literally predicted the life-giving floods of the Nile River. Then the Greeks came along and transformed it into a whole philosophical system. And later, brilliant scholars in the Islamic Golden Age preserved all that knowledge, refined it, and made sure it survived into the modern era.
So as astrology started to spread around the world, it wasn't just a copy and paste job. Nope, different cultures looked up at the very same sky and came up with their own unique systems to answer their own unique questions about life.
And this is what's so fascinating. They're all using the sky, but they're asking fundamentally different questions. Western astrology, the one most of us know, is all about identity. It asks, who am I? Vedic astrology in India is more about purpose. It asks, what is my duty? Linking the stars to big concepts like karma and dharma. And then you have Chinese astrology, which is all about timing. It asks, when is the right time to act, to stay in harmony with the universe's energy, or qi?
So all of this brings us right back to that modern paradox. If astrology isn't, a hard science, why does it feel so incredibly true to so many people? Well, the answer isn't really out there in the stars. It's actually inside our own minds. Psychologists have some really powerful explanations for why astrology just clicks with us so well. It turns out it's kind of a perfect storm of our brain's natural biases and our deep, deep need to find meaning in our lives. The first big piece of the puzzle is something called the Barnum Effect. It's this funny quirk of the human brain where we tend to believe that really vague, general statements are actually talking specifically about us. For instance, a horoscope might say something just like this. Now, think about that. Who does that not apply to? It's so broad it could describe pretty much anyone on Earth, but when we read it, it feels deeply personal.
And because it feels so true, another one of our brain's little tricks kicks in. Confirmation bias. This is where we start actively looking for evidence that the horoscope was right, and we conveniently forget all the times it was totally wrong. We become detectives for our own beliefs.
But it goes even deeper than that. The famous psychologist Carl Jung had this fascinating idea. He argued that the zodiac signs aren't about predicting the future, but about tapping into powerful, universal symbols he called archetypes. The warrior for Aries or the mystic for Pisces. He believed these symbols are part of a shared human story that we all intuitively understand. So really, when you boil it all down, what astrology is providing is a language, a framework. It helps us turn the random, sometimes chaotic events of our lives into a meaningful journey. It gives us a story, and we all love a good story, especially when we are the main character. Okay, but here's the flip side. This really powerful tool for creating meaning, it can also have a serious downside. For every person using astrology for healthy self-reflection, there's a risk of it becoming a kind of psychological trap. It's a real tug-of-war. And you can see this split pretty clearly. Research shows that for a lot of people, it's a great coping mechanism. It helps build community, it's a tool for self-discovery, but for others, it can lead to real anxiety, this feeling of being trapped by your fate, and even a total paralysis when it comes to making decisions. And this is where that paradox really comes into focus. One major study found that a strong belief in astrology is positively correlated with higher self-esteem. That's great, right? But
It's also correlated with higher levels of anxiety. It can build you up and stress you out, sometimes all at once.
In fact, that same study found that nearly half of believers, 49% to be exact, reported feeling stressed or anxious right after reading a negative astrological prediction. So these words, they have a real, measurable impact on how we feel.
In some cases, this can lead to what researchers have actually called fortune-telling addiction. It's the state of decision paralysis where you become afraid to make your own choices. Some studies have shown that over a third of believers have actually put off huge life decisions, like changing careers or making a move in a relationship, all because of an unfavorable forecast. They're essentially outsourcing their own free will.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, we've seen that astrology's staying power comes from its incredible ability to create meaning and order out of chaos. We know its psychological grip is real, thanks to our own brain's biases and its use of these powerful universal archetypes. And we've seen it's a total double-edged sword. It can be a fantastic tool for self-awareness, but also a potential source of anxiety. In the end, its impact really just comes down to how we choose to use it, as a gentle guide or as absolute gospel.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. Is astrology a mirror that we can use for self-reflection, one that helps us see ourselves a little more clearly? Or can it become a rigid map that actually dictates our path and limits the journey before we've even taken a step? Where exactly is that line between seeking a little cosmic guidance and giving up our own personal choice?